Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the World Championship Series StarCraft 2 Europe Challenger. I'm your host, Nathanius, joined by In Control to bring you our third series of our Group B here in Challenger. As we get to the losers match, In Control, exciting times. Our first player going to be eliminated from Group B.
It's a good impression. That's why it's hard for me. It's like, it's funny, but it's also good. So I'm like, ah.
I love that Americans like it. It's great. Everyone in chat's probably
okay? It makes me miss Apollo, though, a little bit. You know?
Yeah, it does.
He's out there, a traitor. No, I'm just kidding. We love
living better lives than us, probably,
no,
by now.
Not mine. I got a Bulldog, man. I'm doing really great.
This
This next match is... did we do winners yesterday? I felt like we did.
We did lower match first.
Really?
Yeah.
Then I'm just wrong? Okay.
Yeah, it's okay.
I like this order usually is what I was going to say. For some reason, yeah, I'm looking at Dreamscape Existence right now. Sorry, guys. But this next one is a tough one on paper. It's like Rail. Rail's your heel. He's the villain of the group. Like, you know, Rail. There's like two guys like, stop it, In Control. I'm a huge Rail fan. You're a Lion. You're a PtitDrogo fan. But Rail's got what it takes to beat an otherwise fantastic PtitDrogo. PtitDrogo's been a little bit faltering here, Nate. He had a tough WCS Austin, and now he's in the loser game. Or
and
the under, what do we call it? Not loser, the under game.
The lower bracket match.
The lower bracket match.
It's
not the top tier.
You know, it's you know, we just try not to use aggressive language. We don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. In Control. Don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. Just because only one person can win the group doesn't mean that the other players are technically losing, although they are. But that winners match does look pretty nice. That rematch from WCS Austin will be great. Man has been looking sharp. That Snoot series, that was a bit back and forth. But PvP, Rail, we got to see him play against Man in that first match. And was there anything that stood out to you? The game is loading up, so we'll be getting into this really soon.
It was, as far as PvP goes, it was nice because it was kind of a cool competing strategy. Obviously, the Warp Prism Immortal and it ending really abruptly is unfortunate, but that is kind of what's cool about it, is that it's a little bit not seen as much in this matchup. So when it does show up, you either got Blink Stalkers or you went Stargate or you don't, and then it's just kind of tough. And it just feels like Lady Luck is on Mana's side right now. It feels like every strategy he does, for the most part, is finding pretty good perches just off of luck almost.
It just works. All right, well, we're loaded in to our... Are we, though? Are we, though? Okay, well, we have the immediate pause, so you guys can come look at our beautiful faces a little bit more. Shout out to the makeup lady, raising us from the dead here at the World Championship Series. And player just says Rail just says he has a little bit of lag, so we're gonna give him a moment or two to accept his fate before we continue this series on.
I'm gonna even out Rail a little bit here while we are killing time, because after his first match, it was kind of interesting. You usually get a little. The players of StarCraft tend to be a little bit salty, and I like it because the things they say can sometimes be a little bit silly. And he was saying that he's having a tough time being motivated to practice and play right now because of how good Serral is.
Wow.
I like that. We've actually seen that sometimes show up in again, those kind of locker room interviews of professional players. If you throw a mic in their face and say something ridiculous, they'll sometimes say something pretty ridiculous. And I can't remember the name of the player, but someone also cited like LeBron James, I believe it was, in the NBA, and was just like, yeah, I mean, what's even the point? Like, I think it was when he was back on the Miami Heat. But anyways, it's just kind of funny. It's like, obviously, Rail is in a low moment.
Football's unbalanced. No one's better than Tom Brady. It's demotivating, basically.
Sure. So obviously, you know, don't take it too serious. It's not like he's literally going on a tirade and did something terrible.
Yeah.
It's just a funny. It's like you just lost to PvP to Mana. Was Serral the reason that Rail didn't win 3 WCS stops last season? And I'm like, can't really do that. You can't do that StarCraft map.
It's weird. I mean, to be fair, we've also kind of accepted that is how it is as well, where it makes the commentary, like yesterday's group, it's like, you know, Serral's going to get out in first place. He just blazed his way through, and it was kind of like that at Austin too. Where we're just like, yep, we expect whatever half of the bracket Serral's on. Like, sorry, everybody else.
I like
you're getting far.
Snoot had an approach at WCS Austin because he was kind of asked about this, and I think it was off of one of the non-mainstream interviews, but I believe it was there that he said that on the one hand, how good Cyril is demotivating in that he's so good that when you face him, you kind of already know you're going to lose. But it's also motivating for someone like Snoot, where he was like, well, I put in so much work, and I see this guy getting all those results, and I know that this game has talent and it has the ability to express incredible things. So that's it is, you know, it's the double-edged sword of like, that is, I can understand if you're like a mid-tier European player like Rail, where it's like, damn, it really sucks that that guy is just clearly better than us. But on the other hand, it's inspiring. It's amazing.
We are resetting up the lobby for the game, just letting the players get their systems rebooted, I guess, make sure that latency is not an issue. Do not want to have to play with lots of latency. Yeah, but to your point, I also think that it's very different dynamic, because it used to be that complaint came from everybody because they're like, oh, they let one Korean that moved to your play, and he only practices in Korea, and none of us can compete with him. But now it's like Cyril, he lives in Europe. He's not the guy that's actually spent half the year in Korea, and he's still dumpstering everybody. So you're just like, the excuses are like, well, how far do you have to stretch it? It's like Cyril's got the same tools to prepare and practice as you do. You know, for me, I think that should be a good sign for everybody. It's like, well, you don't have to be Korean to actually be this dominant in foreign StarCraft. You don't have you can actually reach that level of skill yourself. The one thing that Cyril doesn't do is make excuses. He just practices and wins.
And there's a huge level of respect there too for Cyril, because when the players talk about it, they almost never say, and of course they complain about a lot of things, so they do say it at times, but mostly they don't say things like, well, Zerg's broken, look what Cyril's doing. They're like, no, Cyril's just really, really good, and to the point where people are getting salty about it. So it's, you've heard us talk about Cyril a lot, but I'm trying to kind of paint for a picture.
Cyril makes the tournament boring. Get him out.
I'm trying to paint a picture for you just how good he is, that literally some of the players are complaining about it, which is something that has not happened. Stefano's height of stardom and Idra, these guys, Huck even, nobody was like, oh, they're too good, it's not fair for the rest of us. They were like, I can do that too. They kind of felt that. But with Cyril, people are feeling like they can't do that.
He's actually too good at the video game. All right, well, we are loaded back into this next best of 3. This is the lower bracket match. And in the southeast position, we have the red Protoss player. He is Rail. And his opponent in the northwest, our favorite Frenchman here, he is PtitDrogo.
He's fighting for his WCS Valencia life. Loser of this match is out. There is going to be an open bracket, of course. We talked a lot about that yesterday, so there is another chance, but you don't want that. You want to be seeded into the tournament. You want to be guaranteed some money, some more WCS points, and you want to not have as many variables as what can happen in that open bracket.
Yeah, giving yourself, I think the seeding as well, we talk about it all the time, is so important. Clawing you away from the bottom usually ends up with you having to play versus Cyril or a Neeb at the start of the bracket. And honestly, if you're accepting that Cyril's probably just going to win everything, avoiding him is the optimal strategy. You know, you can still get that second place money as long as you're on the other side of the bracket from him. As demoralizing as that might sound.
Yeah. Well, we were also talking about yesterday too, where it's becoming this weird thing where if Cyril does win Valencia or Montreal as well, or one of the two, then all of a sudden points become so important, because to get to BlizzCon, it'll be determined by the highest points. So if you do have that great tournament, you're on the other side of the bracket, and you get second, third, or fourth, or something like that a couple of times, you might be finding yourself at BlizzCon, and they pay you to go there, Nate.
Yep. And the interesting thing about that is it kind of plays to like the weakness, I think, of a lot of foreign StarCraft players, where the consistency is the biggest thing. Because your WCS points, the only way that you get a lot of those is by winning a tournament. And you either get that one win and then you're set for the year, right? Where you're like, Cyril, technically, he could have lost every match that he played for the rest of the year after he won Leipzig, and he would still be going to play at the global playoffs before BlizzCon. But now, being consistent in Challenger is suddenly like, well, if Cyril just keeps winning, like you just said, it's all in the points. Where are you getting your points from if you're not winning these tournaments, right? You need to consistently, either get to Cyril and lose to him, or get on the other side of the bracket and make those deep runs. And importantly, get deep in Challenger too.
Yeah, and that's what makes these Challenger seasons so important, is that seeding that Nate just described, but also putting yourself in position to do more. It all starts here.
Yeah.
And we do see a breakup in openings here, as both players did open with that double gate and fairly similar stuff. But now we see Twilight Council versus Stargate. And that's interesting. You can go Fast Dark Shrine, but that is certainly not something that you commonly see. More often than not, it's Blink. And it will be after that Nexus for both players that the tech takes shape. But Blink against Stargate, at least on paper, you look at that and you say, well, that's pretty darn good. And it is. It's tough. It kind of puts the Protoss player on alert. If PtitDrogo gets no damage done with that Oracle and decides to follow it up with like Phoenix or something like that, you can be in a lot of trouble very quick.
All right, the Stalkers are going to come poke the front. Picks off one of them, the Adept. Tries to shade through, but gets the shield battery wall up in time. And that will prevent Drogo from being able to get inside of Rail's base. The Adept's going to try to pick off this Sentry with the Stalker. And interesting trade here. So ends up, what, 2 Stalkers and an Adept. Well, this one's still alive, but still running around, just hoping for that wall to be canceled. Kills the Stalker and the Sentry. What do you like in this trade more?
It's interesting because we're seeing Blink Stalker come out from Rail. I, at least on paper, kind of like it for PtitDrogo because those units don't matter as much, but it really comes down to this. There is no shield battery here, so these probes are going to have to get pulled and some will die, although a little bit of miscontrol here as only 2 die. And if the Oracle, it comes close, but it doesn't quite perish. Now your question becomes a little bit more interesting for me. I think it's okay. I think for Rail it was okay. He does come out, you know, what, 1 Stalker ahead, I guess, 2 Adepts and 3 Stalkers die, so it's close.
All right, we have the Twilight Council and the Robo coming in for PtitDrogo back home. So he's going to make his transition away from this Stargate play. Meanwhile, Blink very close to finishing up.
Ooh, that's a lot of Stalkers, too.
He does have quite a few. Without Blink being ready just yet, I guess if he focuses the weak one, he gets the full energy, full health, excuse me, Oracle. But Drogo not able to find much purchase with the Oracles either.
No, not much done. Double Oracle. Now, if he keeps him alive and doesn't get overzealous, because he didn't see Blink finish per se, but he's seen the Twilight Council, so he has to know it's close, then that would become really, really bad. But, you know, stasis wards, good scouting, and the threat of them showing up is really, really nice. It means that Rail's going to have a tougher time being aggressive, because that is one of the dangers when you have a trade like that, is all of a sudden 8 Blink Stalkers show up and your Oracles did nothing.
He seems quite concerned about it. 3 shield batteries going down in the natural. The Oracles come back into the main, and they all die.
Yeah, really weird. And that's kind of what you get with PtitDrogo, by the way. It's not like he is like, I don't think they'll die. He's just taking a risk, a little bit of a gamble. If Rail is not being attentive to that moment in time, then one of the Oracles probably does get out, and a couple of probes dying is a big deal. But he saw it, and it cost him both Oracles and a shoddy opening. So PtitDrogo is an aggressive guy, but it did not pay off so far.
Nope, and Drogo's going to follow this up with Resonating Glaives, Immortal. He's going to build another Oracle, and canceled one of the shield batteries in his natural, wants to get one inside of the main. Like you were talking about in Control, worried a bit about Blink, counterattack. Yeah. We know that that's not what's happening, but it can be, StarCraft is a scary game sometimes.
Yep.
You're left in the dark.
Yeah, and I think Rail has a little bit of a reputation of being a pretty aggressive Protoss. So it's definitely smart PtitDrogo. I mean, that's kind of the luxury that is not afforded to PtitDrogo, right? Like, normally if he has those Oracles alive, he can kind of see if aggression is starting to mount up against him, but in this case, he's got to just plan for the worst. But Adepts against Mass Blink Stalker, it can be rough. You basically can only be aggressive with that. Defensively, it's not good at all. I think it's going to be PtitDrogo hoping to get something done here in a moment.
Yeah, this Oracle needs to find something. There's no Stalkers in the main base anymore. Kind of got the vibe that this Oracle play was done, but he's back at it again now as he gets 3 probes very quickly. He's going to chase down maybe 1 or 2 more of them. The Stalkers are here to fight, and they push it away, but that Immortal count is going up for Rail. And PtitDrogo,
oh my gosh,
moving out with this army. His Resonating Glaives is done. His Warp Gates are finishing. He's got a Warp Prism coming out. But, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how that fares against this army. You don't like it in Control?
It's dangerous. It's really interesting. He shows up, sees gateways. He sees Twilight Council still blinking and upgrading, and is deciding that he can attack against us anyways. He's now seeing there's no third. So everything, like, he's lost 2 Oracles and made a third. He lost his forces earlier, but he's still going forward with his aggression. So it really just comes down to composition. He's hoping that Mass Adepts can get it done against what he's facing. And I don't like it. It's rough. I mean, I guess he's behind, so if he just sat back there, you know, that doesn't look good either. And for some reason, Rail does not believe in shield batteries. Oh, that's interesting. That's some misinformation.
Yep, sees that third Nexus. I guess that could cause him to be a little bit... He's going to add Zealots now. Yeah. He's building up this big force. I mean, a good amount of the Stalkers were in the main base. They got tagged by the Oracle as he was trying to spot that army, and the Oracle's going to barely slip away.
Oh, my God.
And here we have a lot of Adepts. But pushing the issue with these against this many Stalkers and Immortals, I'm not too certain. I don't see this a whole lot.
I mean, with the third going down, I no longer believe he's trying to be aggressive. Oh, it's going to get found by this Observer in such a weird angle. I think he was looking to counterattack and do something weird, like the Protoss army moves up mid-map and then just shows up faster, right? And can just clamp down on the natural and make the Protoss Rail have to decide of coming home. That's what the Dark Shrine tells me, too. It's going to be a base trade kind of play. But it gets spotted by the Observer, which is invisible, and you know, I don't think PtitDrogo saw it because he would have otherwise moved back.
Yep, he sees the army with his Revelation. He knows that it's coming over towards him, loses that Stalker at that east base, knocks down the rocks. He's saying, if you want to chill there,
wow.
He's going to just jump on this army.
They're going to fight. They're just going to, I think PtitDrogo, I mean, he saw that. He lost a Stalker over there. He's going to do it.
Weird fight. And out in the middle of the map, Guardian Shield gets popped. Force fields are put up to stop the Zealots, and the Adepts begin to shoot. Of course, they don't have a whole lot of range, so those force fields keeping them at bay helps a bit. The Prism is actually here for Rail 2 to reinforce with more charged Zealots on top of this army, and Drogo just getting blasted fighting on that east side. He did get the Oracle into the natural during all of this, picked up 8 probe kills so far, but his whole entire army completely destroyed. GG.
Whoa. Okay. Nate, you described it 100% nail on the head. Weird fight. So, again, I'm going to reiterate this, and this I'll mention this just one more time because I think it, you know, for me as a programmer, I wish Caster did more of this. But PtitDrogo is playing from Korea, so latency and that kind of stuff. I'm not sure what time it is.
On Europe server? Okay.
I don't know. So it's probably a little weird that way. But that being said, this is a mental breakdown that we're seeing a lot. And when he lost the Snoot, sure. You think you can't do some stuff because the micro might be a little bit harder to do. But in this case, seeing his army move out, like it kills the Stalker at the third, and then still saying, I think with everything that went wrong earlier, I can still win this fight. That's a really rough call, and I don't know that we get to blame latency for that. So I do think that PtitDrogo, unfortunately, is just kind of having one of those meltdown moments.
I mean, like, he started that third base. He could have tried to recall. Like, you're not fighting for anything in that position. Your opponent doesn't have a third. You're at their base.
Yeah.
I don't think there's...
He was setting up for that base trade. That was the plan.
Like, yeah, I guess.
But then it got spotted, and now you have to cancel the plan. There's no longer going to be a base trade. It's going to be... The guy that didn't expand and won the first 2 fights is going to have the bigger army. And you pointed this out, but it's a really subtle and awesome thing. The force fields held the Adepts back. Their short range became even more problematic because of those force fields. Then you look at PtitDrogo's army. It's 4 sentries, which are now doing nothing, a bunch of Adepts, which are less effective, and it just went downhill from there.
Yep. That's one of those things that when you get into fights like that, you don't see it too often, but then you remember, like, Adepts actually only have 4 range, so they're not going to hit anything past force fields most of the time. And, yeah, just a weird decision to take that fight by Drogo, trying to force the base trade, but everything got spotted. And, I mean, you see that army coming at you, too, because you hit him with Revelation, but you're like, nope, I'm still totally fine.
No, like I said, he did see it because it killed a Stalker at the third.
Yeah, he stood on the tracks and waited for the train, and it came at full speed. Just waiting to get into the lobby for the next game here. And Rail looking pretty good. I think taking into account the latency thing, I did not realize he was playing from Korea. That is quite brutal. The ping from Europe to Korea, not the best. There's a reason why the Europeans... One of the reasons why Europeans have such a good ladder is because they can't play on Korea, so they have to practice versus each other, and that keeps their server big. Yeah.
It also makes it interesting, though, and again, it's hard to deal with that latency, but if you are worried about latency, going 3 Oracles off the Stargate, I guess, where that then all of a sudden does kind of explain the dives, and then losing him to the Stalkers, it's tough, but, you know, he's in Korea because he's training for bigger and better things as well. Yeah. It's not like he's captured and was
he didn't know. Exactly. Nobody just dragged him onto a plane. He's like, you're going to Korea so that you lose Europe Challenger.
Yeah. Well, all right. He's not done yet. He can still recover.
Next map is Redshift. PvP on Redshift. Have you played many PvPs on this map?
Many, no, but I've played them.
How does okay, so this map is weird for the other matchups, but I guess Protoss doesn't, you can't take the gold fast or anything, right? So does it just play normally?
Yeah, I mean, everyone's got range units in this matchup, right? So taking the gold, if it gets spotted, it's going to be a really hard thing to do. Doesn't really factor in until later. The kind of interesting thing here is the probe walk stuff. Some stuff can happen there. The airspace between your two bases is actually
very short.
It's short, but also not dangerous. You're not going to see stalkers in there for the most part. So it can get weird that way. And then there's also good cannon rushes. And not that I think either one of these guys will necessarily do it.
Okay, fair enough. I mean, cannon rushes are fun, but in the bottom left, leading 1-0, we have our red Protoss player. He is Rail. Facing off against the Frenchman, playing from Korea, he is PtitDrogo.
Kind of like Snoot earlier, we talked about this too. Snoot tends to be one of those guys where if things go wrong for him, he can get kind of down on himself. It can be kind of tough. Now, Snoot did recover. He lost that first game with some pretty bad luck, but was able to win the best of 3. PtitDrogo loses that first game, coming off of also, just a rough first series. So it'll be interesting to see if he can bounce back, because I know these guys, and that's the only reason I feel comfortable, by the way, kind of saying that. It's tough as I've been in that situation before as well, where the commentator's like, I think he's just having a weird, terrible mental moment. I'm over there like, no, I'm not. He just beat me. And it's like, well, but in this case, we've seen it from PtitDrogo before.
Yeah.
Choices were kind of weird there.
He wears his heart on his sleeve.
He does.
He gets worked up about his games, and there's nothing wrong with that, you know.
Well, it's good and bad, right? He feels the game on a deeper level.
Yeah. As long as you don't let it go too far, then you're...
So one player will probe scout here, PtitDrogo, and Rail noticeably not doing it. That I can see, right? It's not happening. Sometimes my eyes fail me. People ask this a lot. The difference in mining from not scouting is noticeable. You do feel it a little bit, but it doesn't there's not a build that becomes enabled because of that or something crazy.
Yep.
It just simply means you feel pretty confident that you know what your opponent's doing or that your build is okay against a number of things.
Yeah, okay, Rail puts his first pylon down by the gold base. Is this an indicator in control?
It's either an indicator or he's trying to tell him it's an indicator. Like he's like, I'm gonna take this pretty quick.
He's trying to bait him maybe a little bit into committing to some aggression towards the gold base where he might be not actually thinking of doing it. I guess on this map, does that make Blink more popular since you could use it to traverse the gold mineral patches more easily, or? I know that
I haven't noticed it.
on TVP, I find that Blink is quite popular, or at least you see it a lot.
Could see that being the case. Maybe that's what that pylon's spotting for as well. And we do see Twilight Council coming out for Rail, and I believe it was PtitDrogo as well. Yeah, Dark Shrine. Okay. Ooh. Win behind in the series even. Dark Shrine.
Yeah. That's another interesting thing to think about is on this map, forget the Stalkers blinking. This actually could be a map where eventually at some point, like if you're a fun Protoss player, you throw in a cheeky DT blink build, you can get past these. Actually, I haven't even considered that. Like, there's a good few ways. Might be one of the only maps that has a feature that benefits blink DTs.
Yeah, I actually haven't thought of that either. That's funny. But you don't play a lot of maps on Redshift. It's too bad, 'cause it's actually a really fun map, and it's not that bad. It's not so crazy that the games are terrible or something.
Yeah, I think especially Protoss players find this map to be a little bit more weird. But just kind of pokes that ramp, really overstepping his boundaries there. Drops a Stalker very quickly, and we can see Rail. I mean, if you're him, you gotta be happy. You got that. He's putting the Nexus in the safe location as well. Worth just reminding that he put that pylon at the gold, which should maybe see anything, but. Look at that. Oh, I guess he could also just warp the DTs across the gold as well. Probably a bit easier than researching that expensive blink upgrade.
Might be what he's doing here. That's 2 DTs, and it is going to be an observer first off for Rail, but does it stay at home, or does it go across the map? And how patient is PtitDrogo going to be here? He needs this real bad. I mean, it feels like it's spotted by that probe right there. Already.
Yep, the observer is there in the main base, shuts it down easy peasy, pulls the probes out of the natural. It's like, nope, forget about it.
And now, interestingly enough, that pylon does allow him to keep doing that if he wants to double down on this. But Rail should just get out probably a second observer in a moment and then park it at both bases and say, please do continue to make DTs. Well, that's bad.
Yeah.
Now, it was only a 2 DT investment and only one of them died. But again, this is kind of like the Oracle opening of old, where if you don't get anything done with it, at least now or hopefully a little bit later, then it's quite bad. It's a dead-end tech. The DT stops doing much for you.
Yep, and he brings the Stalker out. It's going to start hitting the pylon over here. Drogo, once again, going for this resonating glaives setup with Immortals behind it and being very cautious. I mean, multiple shield batteries. He has one in his main, his natural. He's very worried about being attacked. And I think that Rail, I mean, he's in a good position to do this, to get the batteries, because he defended very well at the start of this game. And we also see he has the Observer in its deployed mode to make sure that he doesn't ever walk away from his main base in case DTs show up again. And there's one DT out haunting the map, but not,
I like that, actually. Because that is quite literally that is what it's doing, just invisibly waffling around. He's going to leave the Observer back here, actually. There I have to think there's some other like meta game going on where he knows that Rail likes a lot of Stalkers. I mean, both games, he's kind of quote-unquote forced out Stalkers, but even then, if your opponent only makes like 6 or 7 and then goes into another tech and you just double down and go all in on Adepts, it's quite the mental leaning.
Yeah.
But he is correct. It's just, can he execute here?
He's got a Warp Prism. He has an Archon, so sentries, I mean, there aren't any, but they wouldn't be as much of a factor in this situation. Robotics Bay is being added for Rail with the Forge.
Yeah.
But I think you're pretty spot on here. The amount of Stalkers that Rail's been going for, it's quite a few, but I don't know I don't know that this army is enough to beat this at all. Really interesting movements out on the map being made by Drogo. I do like this, though. Trying to pull the army in several different directions as he uses that prism to warp into the gold.
Yeah, it does get that pylon, by the way, just paying dividends. It's spotted so much here. But here come the Adepts, and there is not much here. As Nathaniel's pointed out, the first Disruptor does come out, but a lot of probes should die here. And now going forward with the attack, with the army kind of split up awkwardly, this would be it. That Disruptor connects with both Immortals. Are you kidding me?
They are DED. More Adepts are going to be warped in. The Stalkers are fighting over here. They have 2 shield batteries to work with. Those Adepts, I think actually one of them still alive over here. Getting some more work done. Moving into the main base mineral line. The Stalkers are going to blink up and catch these, though. Wait to see the next Disruptor shot. He gets 2 Stalkers and a Sentry. The Archon, he's out of shields. And now the Adepts are back in that mineral line. So a lot of probes being killed on Rail's part, but he still has most of his army intact. He has the Disruptors. Are we going to see a counterattack here? I don't know what the
Warp Prism still alive?
Drogo's is.
Yeah. Oh, wow. As we say it, I think he got spotted. Maybe he didn't, but
And he's rebuilding this pylon, too. So Drogo is going for a very scrappy game at this point.
Yeah, so here's where we're at, and the DTs are nice in this case, but 13 worker advantage, or at least it was when I was saying it, for PtitDrogo is big, but army composition situation-wise, when someone already has Disruptors and you're a Protoss player facing that, you basically can only go Phoenix, but he's just got the 1 Stargate. He has no Phoenix base whatsoever, so his next engagement against Disruptors, he's just kind of saying, yeah, I just hope they don't connect very well.
Yep.
Which is just not a good game plan because it comes down to execution.
He's just at the mercy. And you know what? I think that if you're Rail, you take into consideration this this delay that we're talking about, Drogo being in Korea, as I'm sure he's aware of it, playing with Disruptors.
Yeah.
Good luck microing versus that with 300 ping.
Very tough. And now, oh my God, the Warp Prism gets picked off.
Here you go. And now he's got his Prism, and well, yeah, that's going to be a tough one to stop and control.
Yeah, you look at it and you say, what can he do? I mean, look at what he's massing. He's got more Immortals coming out, but they can't really dodge Disruptors, not super effectively. He just has Adepts, which are like 1 shot away, but even then, in these numbers, they're not good against the Stalkers.
Trying to hide a base, but that's not going to finish anytime soon. Getting probes there would be a little tricky. So here we go. Here's the big push with these Disruptors. I think there's, yeah, I mean, it's going to be 1 or 2 of these connections really will do it. And by pulling so far back, actually kind of allows him to shoot those shield batteries, gets a few Adepts with the shot on the right side.
I mean, it's a 40 supply advantage for Rail, and it's ridiculous how far ahead he is. It's just down to the Immortals. The shield batteries would have helped, but they're being picked off.
Yeah.
One Immortal kind of shows itself over there. There could be an aggressive blink on the right side in a moment, but right now, Rail's just down to this. He has no third. We're not even going to get a fight out of it. Wow. Okay,
GG,
so Rail wins.
2-0 eliminates Drogo from WCS Europe Challenger, and bit of a disappointing series there. That fight got interesting. It's like, yes, they killed a bunch of your probes, but what did it cost? Everything. And then the tech follow-up from Rail was still there. The disruptor shot on those two Immortals right as the fight starts just makes it so easy for him to kill everything there too.
Yeah, it's really rough, Nathaniel. That was his game plan was okay. Just, we said the ping thing, so a couple of the execution stuff. Yeah, I get it, but a lot of it was decision making, and a lot of it was just kind of just not very good play from PtitDrogo. So hopefully him going to Korea is going to pay off over here. If he gets some really good practice in, get some work done, he can get to that open bracket in Valencia and get his revenge.
Tear it up.
But that's all we got for right now because he's out. He's done.
Yep. So that means that Rail is going to go up against the loser of our next series, ladies and gentlemen, which should be great. It is a WCS Austin rematch of Mana and Snoot. We'll be bringing you that after this short break.